Tired of complicated crochet patterns? Say goodbye to counting rows and confusing stitch combinations. This easy crochet blanket is a super simple to remember one row repeat that looks amazing. Hi, it's Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this glorious Wandering Granny crochet blanket with a stunning jumbo shell border. This easy-to-remember one-row repeat is everything you want. Colorful, cozy, and so much fun to make. The top edge of the blanket matches the bottom edge, so it doesn't matter which way you fold your blanket or use your blanket. It's going to look stunning no matter what. The border just highlights that gorgeous scalloped edge along the top, as well as hides any mistakes along the edges. You end up with a gorgeous blanket that makes a thoughtful and impressive gift. With timestamps and customization options, this step-by-step crochet tutorial is perfect for beginners and beyond. To make your Wandering Granny baby blanket, you're going to need yarn. I am using Cake's Splash from Ice Yarns, but you could use whatever yarn you have. Just use whatever hook size is suggested on the yarn label. Or how I do it, I go up 1 hook size. So if it just says needles on the label, I would go up 1 millimeter for your blanket. If you have a DK weight yarn, go ahead and just use whatever needle goes along with it. You will just be making your starting chain longer. Speaking of starting chain, you can make yours any size at all, any multiple of 10 plus 3. I used a total of 4 cakes for my blanket. Each of these is 140 grams and 225 meters, which works out to 560 grams for my entire blanket, or 900 meters. If you'd like to finish it off with this gorgeous scallop border, you will also need some white yarn, about 50 grams, or whatever color yarn you would like to use for your border, about half of a ball. The border just highlights that gorgeous scalloped edge along the top, as well as hides any mistakes along the edges. You can also just use a regular worsted weight acrylic in whatever colors you like, and just change colors at the ends of your row. The finished size of my blanket is 36 inches wide by 42 inches tall. I used a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook, but you could also use a 7 millimeter. You'll need a needle for sewing in your ends, and a handful of stitch markers really helps in the beginning. For my size blanket, I used 14 stitch markers. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where you left off, and let's get started. To make your Wandering Granny baby blanket, we're going to start by making a slip knot any which way you normally do, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pop that onto your hook and grab your stitch markers. I used 14 for my blanket, but you can make yours any length you want. Each stitch marker represents 2.5 inches, so 4 stitch markers represents 10 inches, and you can just estimate 5 stitch markers is a foot. So if you wanted to make yours 5 feet across, you can go ahead and grab 25 stitch markers. For this tutorial, I'm just going to be doing a shorter sample, so I just have 4 stitch markers for mine. So go ahead and chain sets of 10. 1, 2, 3. If you'd like to follow along with the written pattern, all of my patterns are available on my website, secretyarnery.com, and all of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. And 10. Roll that chain to the side. I just hold it along my hook, those pretty V's. I just put them on my hook, and then I look for these back loops, these little camel bumps, and I want to pop a stitch marker into that camel bump right underneath my working yarn, or the back loop right underneath my working yarn. Let's pop in a stitch marker and chain 10 more. 3, 4, 9, and 10, and pop another stitch marker in. So we're just going to work along doing our chain 10s and popping in a stitch marker all the way along until your chain is longer than you want, or longer than your work is going to be. These shrink up a little bit when we work into them. So go ahead, pause the video, and keep working along your chain until you've used up all your stitch markers. So when you've used up all of your stitch markers, we're going to chain 3 more. 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to be working into the back loops. So just roll that chain to the side. It's exactly where that stitch marker is. Wrap your yarn and make 1 double crochet right into that same stitch or the same back loop as your stitch marker. Now we're going to skip 3 stitches. So to count your stitches, let me grab a needle. There's our back loops, and we're going to be counting our back loops all the way along our chain. So this is 1, 2, 3. We're going to go into number 4 right there, right into that back loop. So wrap your yarn and into the 4th back loop. Just slide it onto your hook, and we're going to do 2 double crochets. This is a little hill we're going to do. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets into that same back loop. 1 and 2. We're going to skip 3 stitches again, so 3 back loops, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work into this guy right here, number 4. We're going to make 1 double crochet into the 4th back loop. And 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, or back loops. So there's our 2nd, and here's our 3rd. Our 3rd always lines up into that chain with a stitch marker. So that's how we know that our stitch count is correct and we've done it all right. It is going to look like that. Skipping 3 back loops, 1, 2, 3, working into the 4th, right over there. We are going to do our hill, so 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. So there's my 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. If I'm going too fast, you can slow me down or speed me up. Just hit that gear on the video right there. That. Now we're going to skip 3 again. So 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work in to the next 3 stitches, or the 3 back loops, with 1 double crochet into each. And the last one is going to end in the stitch or the chain with the stitch marker. So 3 double crochets, 1 into each stitch. Just slide those back loops. This does take time. It's the slowest part of the whole pattern. So just take your time. Don't stress. Don't feel like you have to hurry. Just keep working along. We're just going to repeat this pattern all the way along our chain. And don't worry about your chain looking weird. You can see how it's shrinking up already and getting a little smaller. That's great. That's fine. And now we're just going to keep doing that all the way along. So I've finished my 3 double crochets. Now we're going to do a hill. So skipping 3, 1, 2, 3, working into number 4, we're going to make our hill. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets all into the same chain. There's 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. Just like that. So next is going to be a valley and then a hill, a valley and a hill. We're skipping 3 in between each. So skipping 3, and it's going to line up, ending with our stitch marker. So there is our 3, our 2, and our 1 is going to be into that 4th chain right there. So 3 double crochets for our valley. One into each stitch, ending in the stitch marker, skipping 3 and making a hill. So making a hill into that 4th chain. So you can pause the video, keep working along your row, take your time, and I'll meet you when you get to the end of your row. When you get to the end of your chain, we're going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and into the 4th back loop from our work. We're going to make 1 double crochet. And chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to slip stitch into that last back loop. We're just going to push your hook into the back loop and slip stitch. And that finishes row 1. To start row 2, we're going to work along this side. So this is now going to be the end of our blanket. So just rotate your work. We're not turning it, we're just kind of spinning it. Still, our pretty stitches are facing up. We want to be working in to this flat side now so that both ends of our blanket are gorgeous and we don't really have to worry about putting on a border if you don't want to. It's going to be super cute just as it is. To start row 2, chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And now into the next chain, right where our stitches come from. So for this row, we're going to look where our stitches have come from, and we're just going to make the same stitches in the same spot, matching. We're going to do like a mirror image of all of our stitches. So the first double crochet goes into the same chain, the same spot as the double crochet on the other side. So wrapping your yarn and into that same spot, 1 double crochet. And now we're going to jump straight over to where our hill was, and we're going to make a hill. So 2 double crochets and chain 2 and 2 double crochets, all into that same spot. So I'm putting my hook into the exact same spot. We're just working on the other side to make a mirror image. Like that. Now we have our valley, our 3 double crochets. So into each of those stitches, 1 double crochet into each. And you can pop out those stitch markers if they get in your way. So 1 double crochet into each of those 3 stitches. And into the base of that hill, into that same hole, that same space, we're going to do a hill. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. All into that same space. We're pretty much working over our chain. We're just incorporating it right into our blanket. Like that. 1 double crochet into each of the 3 stitches. And a hill into the same spot as the hill. So right over that chain right there. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. You can pause the video and keep working along this side of your chain, just evening it out, and I will meet you when we get right over here. So 3 double crochets into the valley and a hill into the same space as the hill. I'll meet you when you get right to the end of your row. At the end of your row, it'll look something like this, both sides matching. Just take a look to make sure you put a hill where a hill is and valleys where valleys are. And then at the end, we have where our double crochet is and we have our chain. We're going to make 1 double crochet into each. So right into that same place as our stitch marker where that double crochet started, we're going to make 1 double crochet. And also into the top of our chain, we want to make sure we have 2 strands on the top of our hook for our last double crochet. There, just like that. So that finishes row 2, and now we are ready to start the repeat. To start the repeat, chain 2. If you are a tight chainer, you can chain 3. Turn your work. Our chain counts as our first stitch, so it counts as this stitch right there. We're going to go into the next stitch right here and make 1 double crochet. So there's our first 2 stitches, counts as our first 2 double crochets. And now we're going to jump over and make a hill into a hill right here. So 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets. And remember, you can speed me up or slow me down, just hit that gear on the video. And now into our valley, 1 double crochet into each of those 3 stitches. So 3 double crochets for the valley. And a hill gets a hill. So right into the center, 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets. So the hills are actually really kind of fast because you don't have to look for your stitches. You can just feel that big space and make your double crochets straight into that space. Like that. Valleys get valleys, 1 double crochet into each, so 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And a hill gets a hill. So right into that center space, 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets. Then keep working along. Into the valley, 3 double crochets, 1 into each stitch, and hills get a hill, 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, all the way along. You can pause the video and I'll meet you when you get right over here to the end of your row. At the end of your row, we're going to make a double crochet into the stitch and a double crochet into the top of our chain. So we're always going to end with 2 double crochets. So into the last real stitch, 1 double crochet. And into the top of the chain, 2 strands of that chain on the top of your hook, 1 double crochet. Now you can pause the video, keep working along, growing your blanket until it is the height you want it to be. When you have finished a cake, and you need to pick another cake to join. If you had a cake that had that same color in the center, that would be great. I don't. All of my colors don't line up at all. So what you can do is you can choose to just color control a little bit. So I'm going to start with this cake here because I need to match up that green color. And I'm just going to take out the color before. So for these cakes, I was working from the inside out. So I'm still going to be working from the inside out to keep my colors consistent. And then just go inside that cake and take out the color that you don't need. Oh my gosh, it's almost perfect. This will not happen. This does not happen all the time. This is a fluke. Okay, that's amazing. That worked out much better than usual. If yours is messier, it's fine. Mine's usually messier too. So this little bit of yellow, we can save it. Maybe I can go back and build on this border on the one side to hide our join a little bit. It'll be handy for the future. So I'm just going to cut that off right in the color. Set this little bit aside. And now I'm going to join my yarn. The colors are matching, so I'll have my continued color way. It will work out great. Now, if you are going to color control your cakes, which means joining your next cake at the same color where you left off so that your rows are in order, I would also start that way, just so at the beginning of your blanket, you have one full color rotation instead of just starting in the middle of the cake like I did. I went back and added more yellow so my stripe was the same, or at least I used up my yarn. But for you, just start at the first color change and then keep that scrap for later. So at least you know where you started. You have the same amount of stripe as you will for the rest of your colors working through those cakes. You can join your yarn any which way. I'm going to be joining just with a magic knot. This is acrylic yarn and it works great for a magic knot. If you're not sure how to do a magic knot, I'll show you how to do one. So to join your next cake, you can just lay your tails in opposite directions. So there's an end and there's an end. And just loop one over the other. We have to do both. It doesn't matter which one you start with. And then go under. And we're going to make a knot. Just a regular single knot. Just like that. And then you can shrink that down. You can pull it tight, but you can also do that later. I'm just going to move it out of the way a little bit. Now we're going to do the same thing with our old tail. Bring it over top of our new yarn and underneath. And make a little knot. Just like that. So now we can just slide our yarn together. And now you can pull those tails to make those knots really nice and snug. And this is when you really do want to pull. If your yarn's going to break, it better break now, because we can always just cut it and do it again. And if you are using a cotton yarn or more delicate yarn, maybe a slip knot. Well, if you can't pull it really tight right now, then you have to sew in your tails in a different way. So there is my magic knot and my two tails. They're nice and snug and small. So I'm just going to cut those off straight at the knot, as close as my scissors can get. Just like that. And I'm going to pull it again. If it's going to break, now is the best time. So there we go. I'm ready to continue with my joined color that matches my blanket. So you can pause the video, keep working along, and I'll meet you when you have completed your blanket or run out of yarn, which would also mean you completed your blanket. When your blanket is the height you want it to be, and you have finished your last row, we can go ahead and finish off. If you want to finish off with this border and with an even number of rows, so just go ahead and count your rows, make sure it's an even number. When you have an even number and you've done your last double crochet, we're just going to go ahead and chain one and cut your yarn just long enough to sew in with a needle. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, snug that down to secure, and that finishes the blanket part. To start the border, just roll that back or slide it back. We can just start on the other side. And we're going to put our hook into the top of that chain to start the border. So go ahead, pop in your chain, loop of your border color yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. This counts as our first treble crochet. And now we're going to make a single crochet right into the top of our hill. So 1 single crochet. And we're going to work into our center stitch in the valley. So this center stitch right here. So for the top of our blanket, we're going to be working into the center stitch, and we're also going to be working into the hill. So that's all we're doing for the border. Now into this center stitch in the middle of our valley, we're going to do 7 treble crochets. So wrap your yarn twice and into that center stitch in the middle of our valley, 7 treble crochets all into the same stitch. So there is 7 treble crochets. And now single crochet into the top of the hill, just to pin it down. Wrap your yarn twice and into the center stitch of the valley, 7 treble crochets. So we're going to do this all the way along the top edge of our blanket, just to finish it off and keep the nice shape we already have going. You'll see it really highlights the natural pattern of the blanket stitch. So there is 7 single crochet right into the top of that hill, just like that. And now you can pause the video and keep working along the top edge of your blanket. 7 treble crochets into the center stitch of the valley all the way along, and I will meet you when you get to the end of your row right over here. At the end of your row, we're going to work into the top of that last double crochet. and we're going to do 10 treble crochets. So right into the top of that last stitch, we're going to make 10 treble crochets. So you can pause the video and get those 10 treble crochets done into the very same stitch. That's going to be the corner of our blanket. We're going to do that every time for every corner. So there is my 10 treble crochets. Now we're going to start working along the side of our blanket, that nice straight edge we have. I'm going to make a single crochet into the second row. We're going to skip a row every time. We've worked into the very top. We're going to skip the next one, and we're going to go into the second. Just wherever that yarn is joining on the edge, we're going to go into the second spot, that second row, and just make one single crochet. So now skipping that next connection where the yarn joins, or that next row, we're going to work into the second row, and we're going to make 7 treble crochets into the same spot. There is 1, 2, and 7. Skipping that next connection or that next row and working into the second, 1 single crochet. And we're going to repeat that all the way down the edge of our blanket. So skipping the next connection or that next row and working into the second, we're going to do 7 treble crochets. 1, 2, and 7. Skipping the next connection or that next row and working into the second, 1 single crochet. So you can pause the video, keep working along the edge of your blanket, doing your single crochet, skipping one of those connections and working into the second, or skipping a row and working into the second row with 7 treble crochets all the way down along the edge of your blanket. And I will meet you when you get right down here to the end of that side. At the end of your row, depending, you might have a chain or you might have the top of a double crochet. Either way, it's fine. We're going to work either into the top of the double crochet or into the top of the chain, and we're going to do our 10 treble crochets. So right into the top of the chain or into the top of that last double crochet, whatever's on the edge of your blanket, 10 treble crochets. And 10. Now we're ready to rotate our blanket a little bit, so we're working in along either the bottom or the top again, depending which way your blanket's going. Now, just like that, into the top of our hill, single crochet. Now into that center stitch of the valley, we're going to put our 7 treble crochets into each. So wrapping your yarn twice and into that center stitch in the middle of our valley, 7 treble crochets, just like we did on the top. And 7, and single crochet into the top of the hill. So just like we did at the top of our blanket, we're just going to do it along the bottom. So 7 crochets, 7 treble crochets into the center of the valley and a single crochet into the top of the hill, all the way along until you get to the end of your row. At the end of the row or end of the bottom of your blanket, into that stitch or the chain, depending on which side you started, you'll be doing 10 treble crochets into that corner stitch, and then skipping a join and single crocheting into the second. So keep working along. I'll meet you when you get to the end of this row right here. So I've reached back right to where we started and into the very same chain or the very same spot right there where we joined our yarn. We are going to do 9 treble crochets. So straight after our single crochet, we're just going to jump right over and do 9 treble crochets, remembering that our chain counted as a treble crochet when we began. So it'll end up counting as 10 altogether. So into that very same stitch where we began, 9 treble crochets. 1, 2. And there is 9. Now we're just going to slip stitch right into that single crochet to join. So just right where we'd be crocheting normally, we're just going to go in and make 1 slip stitch and chain 1 to secure your yarn. You are also welcome to join with an invisible join if you would like to do that. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. Sew in your tail and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video up there, and stay hooked.